The second part of your question is actually the more underrated, and that's DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, and I
I
would
think
agree.
that I think that he is somebody that is very dynamic, that brings a lot to the table for the Detroit Lions. We talk about three down backs in the NFL, and DeAndre Swift legitimately could be and probably should be a three down back. I'm not a huge fan of the third down specialist running back because that makes your already predictable offense that much more predictable. So when you have a guy like a DeAndre Swift who can line up in the backfield and who can run routes, it can make catches and can get you 500 yards over the season of production in the passing game.
Mhm.
That's important to me. That's effective to me. And there was I forget what the statistic was, but people were starting to take notice of DeAndre Swift last year because of his pass catching ability. And I think wasn't he like the leading receiver on the team for like the first like 6 or 7 games, probably,
Well, I
because
mean,
they were
who else
struggling
could they
to
throw?
throw the ball.
Well, who
Right.
else could they throw to?
And that's the point, right? They're struggling to throw the ball. So, you know, him bringing that type of dynamic aspect to the team, I think puts him in a category where people might not be knowing exactly what he can bring to the table, but they're about to be put on notice. And so I would label him as our underrated player.
And to kind of piggyback off your point, I agree that DeAndre Swift is underrated because, like you said, there's a lot of people out there. They look at DeAndre Swift and they say, "Hey, this guy's very dynamic. He's explosive. He's electric. He can literally go 0 to 60, no time flat." But the biggest hit that everyone comes back with DeAndre Swift is, can he stay healthy? That's the
Right.
biggest knock he always
It is.
gets. Is like, hey, the skill is there, the talent is there. It's discernible from a lot of other running backs, but the injury bug keeps biting him in the butt every single year. And it's like, I'm hopeful that when he was in the gym with his pops this offseason and getting ripped all where and back, that will fix that problem in a quick hurry. Now,
Well, but that's the thing, right? Deuce Staley, the running backs coach, was obviously also having conversations with him about,
oh,
okay, are you hurt or are you injured? Let's understand the
exactly.
difference between the two and know, which like
Which is
good
which and what is
produce.
what?
Right. And I think that that's an important distinction for DeAndre to make. Sometimes you're injured and you just can't play, but everybody in the NFL is hurting the entire
Oh
season.
yeah. I mean, it's inevitable to get nicked up or banged up at some point in the NFL season. But when I was playing in college and high school, it was like, listen, is anything broke? Can you still move, or is it just a stinger? If it's just a
Right.
stinger, get your butt back out there and go make plays.
Right.
So
Yep.
I get that argument. I totally do. Now, my underrated player, you already know where this is going, so I'm gonna let your snide comments go, is Jared Goff. And the reason why I say he's underrated is because, as we were having a previous conversation, PFF ranked him 31st in the league. And it's like, listen, I get the jokes, I get the comments, I get the under the breath comments. He's just a bridge quarterback. I get it. I've heard it all. But when I look at what Jared Goff had to work with last year for the most part, like you said, DeAndre Swift was the leading receiver because pretty much past him, we didn't really have anybody else except maybe TJ Hawkinson for the majority of the year. And yet Jared Goff still finished tying the franchise record for completion percentage. He still finished with a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. And over the last 6 games of the year when he was a starter, they finished 3-2-1. So it's like, okay, last year, the talent on this team was just poo poo. We'll just call it what it was. It was not very good offensively, whether it was because we just didn't have the players or they were injured. But if you take a look now and you fast forward a whole off season, the offensive line, it's fully healthy. It's already getting work. The wide receiver core is night and day difference in terms of talent and depth as from what we had last year. We still have DeAndre Swift. We still have Jamal Williams. Ben Johnson, it actually looks like that he's going to work with Jared Goff rather than in spite of him, like Anthony Lynn kind of did last year with the play calling and design. And it seems like Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they have put all these resources into making Jared Goff work. It's just like, okay, I take a look at that and I just don't see how Jared Goff cannot even have the same season he had last year. If anything, like I've said, I think he has a really good year because of all the investment into the offense they put into it. So one way you could put it is like, I just by necessity and proxy, I'm just saying, listen, he's underrated because there's no way he does nearly what he did last year. He should do leaps and bounds ahead of what he did last year. That's my reasoning.
Should. I'll start my response by asking you this.
Sure enough.
Week 1, what looks different about that wide receiver room? Week 1.
What? Well, you don't have a guy in Terrell Williams that's getting injured in quarter 3 of the first game of the season. You've got more than just Quintez Cephas. You've got DJ Chark. You've got Josh Reynolds that's already on the sidelines and not playing with the Titans. St. Brown is already fully established. And you've also got this new guy that we picked up last year that's starting to catch on in Trinity Benson, potentially also making that roster. So instead of just having 1 or 2 guys deep, you're like 3, 4, 5 guys deep.
So okay. So where I was going with this was from the end of last season to week 1 of this season, really the bigger difference or the biggest change is Chark, right? It's not Jameson Williams because the talk is that he's not going to be ready week 1, right?
No, and I
So
expect that.
right. So you would think that Goff would have leaps and bounds of a better year than what he had last year. Just because, yes, you're right. They did invest in, they brought Chark in. They traded up to draft Jameson Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if he's going to be able to. And the question for me is, okay, do we have to tap the brakes a little bit and not make a judgment on Goff until Jameson Williams is fully healthy?
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the way.